Welcome back.
So we are going to talk about the first decision you make once you know you're going to be a parent, once you pee on the stick.
Right. Yeah, it is. It's one of the first big decisions that you make.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what is it?
Choosing your care. Who's going to take care of you when you're pregnant?
That's right.
I mean, besides me taking care of you all the time when you're pregnant, I'm...
Okay, let's rewind that. Right? No, so what we're talking about here is like your medical care, not your. Actually, it's more than that. It's your medical. I'm a very
your medical, your emotional, like every type of.
See,
care.
right there tells you who the kind of person I am. Because I say medical, and I totally like. I know that midwives specialize in the medical aspects as well, but I've always gone the OB route. So, and we have different experiences on this.
Yes, and I've used a midwife. So that's why we are going to start this discussion with our very own in-house midwife. Shirley Grove is going to speak with us today about midwifery. Thanks for joining us today.
Yes, thank you. I need to learn a lot because I don't really know that very much about, midwives and what you guys do. So this is going to be really interesting for me.
So maybe to start with, what is a midwife?
Sure.
A midwife is a trained care provider. We're clinicians, so like a doctor or a physiotherapist or an obstetrician. We specialize particularly in healthy, low-risk, normal pregnancy, labor and delivery, and the 6 weeks postpartum period for mom and baby. And we can order all the same tests that your family doctor could, your obstetrician could, ultrasounds, blood work. You see us at the same interval that you'd see another care provider in your pregnancy.
So it sounds like similar, right, to an OB, but there are differences.
Yeah. So what would you say maybe one of the differences is? I think one thing you just noticed, you said there was 6 weeks aftercare.
Yes.
Right.
So when you are with a midwife, you will continue to see your midwife after the baby's born for 6 weeks.
That's right. So,
They start out in your home.
Yeah.
Well, but that's interesting. So do you do the visits in home before as well, or is it just after?
We will sometimes do a visit at home in your pregnancy, especially if you're planning a home birth. We sometimes come to your house just to see your place and check in and make sure everything is ready. And then in the early postpartum period, in that first week after you've had your baby, we think it's really important that you spend time at home bonding with your baby, not running out to appointments. And so we do come and visit you at home for the most part in that first week.
And now when someone's making that decision, like for myself, I just have the experience with an OB, and my doctor basically chose the OB who she probably works with and referred me. And I've been lucky it worked out for me. I love my OB and it's been great. But so for a woman who wants to try having a midwife, do they choose the midwife or do they go meet with you? How does it work? Because you have several midwives in your clinic, right?
We do, yeah. There's 5 of us at our clinic. Typically, you have to call really soon. As soon as you know you're pregnant, you have to call in.
Okay, because it's not always
different,
easy, right?
No, it's not. Most of the midwives, at least in Waterloo region, and I would say across Ontario, the practices are full really fast. So,
so it's popular to have a midwife.
It is, yeah. It's becoming more popular as well. The number of midwives is growing throughout the province. So, and it seems like most of us are full most of the time. So once you know you're pregnant and you think you'd like a midwife, you need to call. You can't wait and see.
Your doctor doesn't do that call for you. You need to make that call yourself.
You need to make that call yourself.
So that's the difference too, because with the doctor and
they
OB,
set the appointment.
They set your first appointment.
Right. Yeah. No, you need to call yourself. And typically with your family doctor, you might be with them until about 28 weeks pregnancy. And then you go and see the obstetrician. You can come and have your very first visit with your midwife. So
so early on.
Early on. So you might be coming to our office as early as 10 or 11 weeks pregnancy.
So that kind of goes in line with the continuity, right? Like you have the same person caring for you
throughout your
So if you had concerns at 10 or 11 weeks, your midwife would have dealt with you at that time all the way up to the day your baby's born, unless you have some risk situations coming into play.
That's right. Yeah. So the three pillars of midwifery that we usually talk about with people at their first visit, if they decide they want to come into midwifery care, we usually talk about them so that people are aware of how we do things and kind of what the foundation of our care is. And those 3 things would be that idea of continuity, that you know your care provider. We try really hard to match up women's due dates with midwives that will be on call during that time.
Right.
And at our practice, we do something called shared call. So I will always be paired up with another midwife, and when I'm on call, she's doing clinic, and then we switch. So if your due date was in January, you would be paired up with 2 midwives that are sharing call during January. So essentially you're guaranteed
that you'll know the person delivering.
To know the person delivering your baby.
But really well, because you've, like, we go back to that relationship thing, you've seen them
throughout your whole
time.
pregnancy.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And now for women like myself who consider natural birth just, you know, getting an epidural and having it clear vaginally. I'm sorry. I know that is not the typical, I know that's not considered natural birth to some people, but to me it was.
It is for some people.
It was for me.
We had a big argument.
Okay, Melissa and I had a disagreement on this because I always say a natural birth. She's like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't.
It's debatable.
I really respectfully bit my tongue for the
well,
first
it only
2
worked
times.
on half my body. So
this is the common
Yeah.
story.
Okay.
Yeah. I felt something in my leg, so.
I felt it on one side. But so for women like myself who've only experienced birth with an epidural and like who would, I'm nervous to commit to not getting an epidural. Is that part of the process of working with a midwife, that you're kind of aiming to not have an epidural?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, it's a hard one. There is lots of debate about whether epidural is part of normal childbirth,
right,
and midwives specialize in normal.
Yeah.
But just because you have a midwife doesn't mean that that's out of the question.
Right.
If you need or want an epidural, then that's still a possibility to have a midwife and have an epidural.
And so that's when transfer of care comes in.
Here,
within this region,
yeah,
but not everywhere,
not
in
everywhere.
Ontario or in Canada.
That's
for that
right.
matter.
In some areas of Ontario, midwives are able to manage epidural, and so you would stay with your midwife, have your epidural, have your baby.
Yeah.
We're not quite there yet here in KW.
So we just said something about transferring of care. What are some situations in which you would transfer care? I know for myself, I experienced it firsthand. I was with a midwife, and my little guide did not want to flip, and was footling breech, which is like the worst type of breech. Because like feet were hanging out of me. Anyway, and so I had to go to work with an OB, but my midwife was still there through the process. But that is one example when you would have to transfer care.
Yeah, so anytime that your pregnancy or your labor or your postpartum period strays outside of that
normal scope,
normal, healthy, low risk area, then we might be talking to a physician or transferring care to a physician, depending on how serious or what's going on. So we work really closely with the obstetricians in town and refer to them if we need to, consult with them when we need to. Sometimes they need to take over care because what you need is a cesarean section, and obviously that's not in our scope of practice.
Right.
So the biggest thing is really it gets kind of very similar in the fact that you both can deliver babies, but then they kind of come into the place where there's something surgical needed.
Well, because your education's different, right, from an OB to...
Very different, yeah. We're not considered doctors. I have a Bachelor of Health Sciences in midwifery, so it's a very specific degree and it's a 4-year degree. It's not quick and it's not easy, but I'm not a surgeon. I'm not a doctor.
Right. Right. And then we also hear of another service which is called a doula. So there's a big difference between a midwife and a doula. Yeah. So what would that be?
So you would hire a doula or enlist the services of a doula if you wanted an extra support person during your labor. She is there, typically I think most doulas are women, there to provide some comfort measures for your labor.
Right, okay.
Say you wanted to have an epidural-free birth, a birth without an epidural, you might hire a doula to help you through some pain management-related things, some support. She's not making any clinical decisions at all.
So I would call my husband my doula then.
Yes.
Right, exactly.
He is my doula.
And that's perfect if your partner can be that for you.
You mentioned hire, and so I think one thing that women need to know is that you do not pay for midwifery.
No.
So I think that's a common misconception, is that you pay if you want to go with a midwife, but you don't.
Right. No, you don't. So since 1993, midwifery has been a regulated profession. in Ontario, and covered under the Ontario OHIP, the hospital insurance plan.
That's good. That's the way it should be.
Yeah. Love it.
Thank
this
you
has
so
been
much.
so good. Yes.
Yeah, really
Providing
good.
some information.
Really good information.
And if you're interested in more information on midwifery, you can go to the Ontario website for the Midwifery Association. And until next week, thanks so much, and we'll see you again later.
See you next week.